am David Wafula, an African journalist, and I've heard numerous stories about the crisis in Kenya's healthcare system. From fake pharmacies and the scourge of counterfeit medicines through to life-threatening misdiagnoses, you never quite know who to trust, and you never quite know what's real. I want to find out how the situation has got so bad and why getting the right treatment in Kenya can be such a gamble. I begin my journey in Kibera, a slum in Nairobi, and meet with a woman who bought some medicine from her local pharmacy to cure an infection.
I woke up in the morning with the swollen eye. I did not have that time to go to hospital, so I decided to go to a nearby pharmacies. After taking the medicine for 2 days, I thought it was going to stop swelling, but unfortunately it's swollen more than the way it was before. But the wound in my face was very horrible. This one I'm making earring. After 2 days, I took my medicine to the doctor. The doctor told me that I was given the wrong medicine. After the doctor gave me his medicine now in hospital, that is when I started seeing the improvements in my eye.
For an ordinary person on the streets, it's very difficult to work out whether a drug is fake or substandard. There are many ways a drug might not work well. It might be a misdiagnosis or a wrong dosage, or maybe poor storage conditions. But a man I'm about to meet, he noticed a problem with the drug he was taking right away because he's a medic himself. Good morning, Daktari.
Morning.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Okay.
How's it going?
It's okay.
Yeah, so what really happened?
A few months back, I forgot my insulin. I'm diabetic, so I had to buy another insulin from one of the nearby pharmacies. So I used it that day, and I realized that the sugar was not being well controlled. I used it for a couple of times. It was still the same problem. So I decided to get the insulin from my regular supplier. 2 weeks later, I actually forgot again to come with the insulin to the office. When I did that, I realized again we had a problem with the sugar. Hypertension starts developing if the sugar is not well developed. Finally, we end up having things like affecting the kidney as well, where we actually go into a kidney failure.
How big is the problem of counterfeit and substandard drugs in the country?
It's real. At the emergency level, you don't get the product into the patient at the right time, people die.
The worldwide trade in fake drugs is now a $30 billion industry, a figure that has nearly tripled in the last 5 years. In Kenya, it is estimated that 30% of all medicines sold are counterfeit or substandard, with anti-malarias and antibiotics being the most commonly falsified drugs. What are some of the notorious areas in the world or countries that bring in counterfeit things?
Recently, anti-counterfeit agencies managed to intercept counterfeit morning after contraceptive pills from China, and it was concealed within a containerized cargo. That cargo was about 31,000 pills.
31,000 pills?
Yeah.
And how much does that?
That cost about $60,000 US.
I'm finding it's really hard to distinguish between a fake drug and the real thing. So I've organized a meeting with a pharmacist to help me out with the key things to look out for. Doctor, I'm looking at a scenario whereby I've gone to a chemist and bought drugs. But how am I supposed to know this is good or bad?
If you put two medicines here in front of me, even I as a professional, as a pharmacist, as a trained pharmacist, as a registered pharmacist, I may not be able to tell you the difference. But however, there are ways in which we can help you. No patient in this country should enter a pharmacy and be handled by anyone else other than a pharmacist or an enrolled pharmaceutical technologist. Anyone else is a quack. Don't go to pharmacies that don't have people displaying their names. James here is the owner of this place, so he's a pharmacist. So all you have to do is, James, can you give me your registration number and your name? and go to the website, enter his name or his registration number, and you'll see his face will come up. It's a genuine pharmacist. If I look at all these medicines, I mean, there are brands that are known. I really discourage people from buying medicines that are cut, because then you're not able to, something like this, you're not able to tell if anything happens to you. You're not able to get the batch number, because we need to see that batch number. Was it meant to be in this country? Does it have a manufacturing and an expiry date? Because you could be taking an expired item by just taking medicine that is like that, So I'd encourage people to take medicine that is in full outer packs.
This is helpful advice, but of the 15,000 pharmacies in Kenya, only 5,000 are registered. And there are only enough trained staff to run 3,000 of them, which means it's very hard to find a trained pharmacist in a registered pharmacy, especially in a slum. I went to speak to a pharmacist in Kibera to find out more. The concern of many people is that, am I really buying the real thing, or am I using a substandard, or a falsified, or a fake drug? How do you make sure that you sell, good drugs?
In most cases, we are buying these drugs from the wholesaler or from the manufacturer. There is no substandard drug in this small pharmacy of mine.
I want to believe everything this pharmacist is telling me, but having spoken to Dr. Louis, I know how difficult it is to tell the difference between fake medicines and the real thing. The people responsible for ensuring that only safe medicines are sold are the Pharmacy and Poisons Board, the government regulator. They insist that all chemists are registered, but for pharmacists working in the shantytown, this is almost impossible. Most pharmacists in Kibera are not registered.
They are not registered. I think 99%.
Oh, that's a big number.
It's not that they don't have qualified pharmacists. It's because the structures themselves, they cannot license the structures. They just say, we can't license you, you don't have a permanent house. And that is why they gave their leeway to come and harass them.
Rather than closing down illegal pharmacies, some Pharmacy and Poisons Board officials are accused of allowing them to keep trading as long as they pay a bribe.
These guys of the pharmacies and the Poisons Board, when they arrest you, they will just harass you and they will demand like 50,000 to 100,000.
That is why when they come over, everybody who has a pharmacy in Kibera, they close and run.
The Pharmacy and Poisons Board are also in charge of checking the quality of all pharmaceuticals that enter the country. But I've heard allegations they're abusing this power to allow fake or substandard drugs into Kenya for substantial backhanders. So I decided to meet up with Dr. James Nyikal, the current chair of the Parliamentary Health Committee and former Secretary of Health.
When I was the Director of Medical Services, I was directly involved. Definitely there were some officers that we had to take action on because of this.
Do you think the Pharmacy and Poisons Board are corrupt?
There is definitely issue of corruption. There are officers who will be compromised that can pass in drugs that have been not properly tested. It hasn't died. So those officers are still there.
After the startling frankness of the former Secretary of Health, I wanted to find out more. I need an insider. A contact has put me in touch with a man who has worked with a pharmaceutical distributor, and he has first-hand knowledge on how fake medicines get into Kenya. He's scared to show his face, so I've agreed to hide his identity.
I have worked in the pharmaceutical industry for the last 28 years. You have people who, although they are supposed to be the professionals, trained and qualified in this country, but they are actually the biggest problem. This runs from the so-called regulator to the person involved at the retail level.
Regulator to basically to the person who is involved even at the retail level.
For a product to be sold and imported in this country, the regulator has to be highly involved because he has pre-inspected the factory. Some of the factories have never been inspected, and this is where the problem happens.
Can I give you a classical example?
I'll give an example of a distributor I personally worked with. They imported a product, paracetamol. It was supposed to be 150 milligrams per ml. But in this particular product was highly diluted. It was 150 milligrams per 10 ml. This, of course, will be completely useless.
This, of course, will be completely useless.
To import any product into this country, you need to have an import license. There are licenses that will disappear. They will be blacked off and they will not exist in the system, such that a particular item can be used once, twice, 3 times.
Such that particular license can be used once, twice, 3 times, yet you know that
such an import should only be used once. You have about 3 officials at very senior level within the Pharmacy and Poisons Board who will sign an import declaration form.
The amount of money that would be changing hands for such a signature or stamp will be upward of $20,000.
I have just read through a document from the Kenyan court dated 2011 showing that the Pharmacy and Poisons Board have previously allowed fake pharmaceutical products into the country worth thousands of dollars. In the presence of no less than 4 public relations representatives, the Pharmacy and Poisons Board agreed to grant me an interview.
My name is Christabel Haimba. I work as a pharmacovigilance officer at the Pharmacy and Poisons Board.
How big is the problem of fake and substandard medicines in the country?
I know the problem is there, but I believe more studies will need to be done so that we are able to get the exact estimates of the problem.
I've been talking to pharmacists and I've been talking to distributors as well. They're submitting at 30%.
We know WHO says it's globally it's 10, but in Kenya, based on the studies that we've done before, the rate of falsified products is less than that as a country.
There's a lot of things that get into the country and it cannot be explained how and why. So what I really want to know is, can you defend that there is no corruption at the points of entries?
I'm not the one in charge of that, but I think if such allegations, I think it will be good to pass them through the management so that it can be followed up to know exactly where it comes on.
Frustrated by Dr. Christabel's inability to give a clear answer, my producer tried a more direct approach.
You are the management. What is your job? Are you not management? I mean, are you not one of the managers here?
As I said, I'm not the one in charge of the ports of entries.
But your job is to try and regulate the medicines and the poisons coming into this country. And what he's saying is there are well-reported allegations that you have not been able to do that. That containers, consignments of medicine coming into this country have been impounded, and then moments later they've got a stamp from the poison board saying it's all okay.
As I said, I'm not able to answer that.
But who is? Who is able to answer that?
And that's why I said you can channel that.
If we can get the right person who can comment on that, that will be lovely.
Yeah, so.
Come on, We followed up with numerous emails asking to be put in touch with the department which might be able to answer our questions, but have received no response. I have found this journey frustrating and deeply worrying. The very people in charge of protecting us from fake medicines are accused of being one of the worst offenders, and until there are changes, Kenyans will continue to play the healthcare lottery with their lives.
Counterfeit medicine are there. The government of Kenya is not doing enough.
It goes without saying that there are people who are going to suffer either prolonged illness or even die.
The corruption that we have seen in this industry, it is contributing to the disaster we see today as the health industry in Kenya.